So this is what I would consider to be like candy in the realm of fantasy, or like my candy read of the month amongst the other things that I have read, meaning it was sweet, it was enjoyable, but not much depth going on. And I don't say that to be an insult. I think a light, enjoyable read is perfectly good sometimes. But I will say, after reading this and then a cozy fantasy, I was ready for other styles of fantasy. Maybe a little more larger world, epic, classic, whatever. Heartless Hunter is the first book in the Crimson Moth duology by Kristen. Last name I don't know how to say and don't want to say it wrong. I've been trying more romantasy this year. This was on a really good Prime Day sale recently, and with that beautiful cover, it was very tempting. The book overall was fine. I'm a little frustrated that it is the first book in a duology. My own fault. I thought I was getting a standalone. Because this was fairly enjoyable, and I got invested enough that I might like to see how it ends and what happens to the characters afterward, but I don't know that I enjoyed it enough to want to have to invest the time in a second book. Like I said, there wasn't a ton of depth, so it was good enough. The storytelling, the prose, all of that was good enough and fine, but the parts of the story that were done more well are not the parts that I necessarily care about. One of those being the enemies to lovers trope. Not one of my favorite tropes. I just think it's difficult to do and do well. And in this one, that's probably where I will start the actual review part of this video. As a romantasy, I did think that the romance elements and the fantasy elements were pretty well combined. The romance tropes, besides enemies to lovers, was like this almost love triangle with two brothers, childhood friend, which I think is a thing, and then like fake dating. The fake dating part was weird because of how the two characters, Rune and Gideon, were so aware of the fakeness on each of their own individual parts. And I felt like that aspect of the relationship went really well with the enemies to lovers trope because they were actual enemies. And then I should probably go into some of the plot elements and then talk about how those plot elements and the romance elements kind of went together. So the main magic in this book is witchcraft. Women are witches, and those witches use blood magic. There are different ways you can get blood, and the different ways that you can get it can fuel different types of spells, or like how powerful the spell can be. So you can get fresh blood from yourself or from someone else, or you can use like older stored blood, and then the blood taken from someone else can either be willingly given or unwillingly given. Blood that is taken unwillingly from somebody else is pretty much only used to fuel dark, powerful magic. The blood that witches usually use is from themselves, and they usually do it by carving into their own skin, creating scars. A scar made by taking blood to use in a magic spell turns silver. So as they're using blood for spells, they're marking themselves, giving themselves these silver scars, which is like the main identifier of how you know someone is a witch. So at the height of like witchy times, when the land is being ruled by three sister queens who are witches, it's like in fashion for a witch to give herself these silver scars in very prominent places. So like neck, chest, arms, maybe even up the face, where it's very, very visible. And they try to be like artistic about it. So each witch has her own style of silver scarring. Kind of weird, kind of dark in places. They're really striving to make it decorative. And then, kind of weird, but also when you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Menstruation is a big deal for how this story goes and for the type of magic. So only females are witches, and the way they find out whether they are a witch or not is when they have their very first cycle. If it's normal, you're normal. If it is black and stains everything and you can't wash it off, then you know you're a witch. And when this story starts, we get a little bit of like flashback, how Rune's story begins and how we get to where the main bulk of this story is. But there has been this big revolution. The witch queens have been overthrown, and there is a group of like police type figures called witch hunters, and they go and they hunt down witches. Witches have been pretty easy to find because of the silver scarring. When a witch uses magic, she also leaves this, like, what do they call it? Like a stamp or a seal or whatever. It's like a kind of like a hologram idea, like an image hovering over where their spell was. Runes is a crimson moth, which is how she gets her name. She does not discover she is a witch until after the revolution, so she thinks she is safe. She has inherited wealth from her grandmother, who was a witch, who is no longer with her. And once she comes into her power, she feels so much guilt about her grandmother and about surviving when so many other witches didn't survive. She, like, goes undercover as the Crimson Moth, and it has become her personal mission to save witches. So that's like her alter ego, her alternate identity. And then the identity that everyone else knows is Rune Winters, the spoiled rich girl who doesn't have much substance to her personality. And she really tries to play that up. She tries to act like kind of a brainless socialite, so no one would ever suspect that she could even be capable of sneaking around and doing what the Crimson Moth does at night. And to kick this off, there is a particular witch that she is trying really hard to save. She doesn't make it in time before the witch hunters get the witch she is trying to save. And so she feels like she has to go in deeper and take bigger risks to try to save that other witch. In fact, taking such a big risk that she is willing to go into this fake relationship with the best witch hunter they have, Gideon Sharp, who is also the brother of her best friend, Alex Sharp, who is like on her side. He knows she's the Crimson Moth. He helps her sometimes. And so that's where the, like, almost feels like a love triangle trope comes in. Doesn't quite. Alex is the one who's her childhood friend, and she has long not really liked his brother Gideon, especially now that he's a witch hunter. And so that plot line of Rune is secretly the Crimson Moth, pretending to be this brainless socialite, and she's trying to save witches, so she has to get into this fake relationship with a witch hunter. And then Gideon, the witch hunter, suspects Rune of being the Crimson Moth. He can't really quite believe it because of the type of person she is pretending to be and trying to prove herself to be, but he may as well fake date her to try to get her secrets and try to find her out. So Gideon, super well aware that he is fake dating, super well aware that she could be the Crimson Moth, but if she's not really the Crimson Moth, he can't, like, let her suspect that he thinks that. And then Rune, super well aware that she is fake dating him, that he's fake dating her, that he suspects she's the Moth, but they can't talk about that. He can't just ask her. I mean, he could, but that might spoil things. And then so the enemies to lovers trope, I felt like worked better here than in other places I've seen it, because they are real enemies, not just like, I don't like you very much, not just you're kind of annoying and then you get to know each other better and oh, you're not so bad. They would kill each other if given the chance, if they thought it was necessary. Gideon actually does try to kill her at one point. That's part of what I don't like about that trope. Like, how can you go from real actual enemies to lovers in any kind of healthy way that feels romantic? Like I said, hard to do well. So because Rune was able to come into her magic after the revolution, she has no scars. And that's one of the things that adds some, like, sexual tension to the storyline, is that he is trying to inspect her for hidden scars. So they get themselves into some situations where, because she knows what he's doing and she knows that she doesn't have any scars, she allows these situations to happen where he can try to find any, and she can be very confident in the fact that there are none. She cannot be accused of witchcraft with 0 scars. So her secret, which I think I can say because it comes in really early in the book, is that each month she collects her own menstrual cycle blood. It's not as powerful as fresh blood, especially by like the end of the month where it's as old as it can be before she gets to collect more. The magic that she tries to use with it gets weaker and weaker. And she's getting closer to where she's going to need some really strong spells. And she's just like, come on, body, let's go. And then she also has some of her friend's blood from the same source, also not fresh, although given willingly, and her other friend, her male friend, Gideon's brother, Alex, has also offered her up some blood, but the only way for him to give her any would be through some kind of wound that would then scar Silver because the blood would be used for magic. So Rune is like, no, 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 no. No reason to put yourself in danger for me. We've got this. We bleed every month. We just have to be prepared and wait for it. One of the things that I thought was weird about the writing style, I'm used to reading a lot of fantasy written by men. And so I often run into that feeling of women written by men, which can sometimes be really annoying. Like, have you ever met a real woman in your life? But in this book, reversed, where when I was reading about Gideon, it felt kind of like woman writing man, and I was like, okay, do you know any real men? He seems a little sometimes like stereotypical, your idea of what you want this man to be like. He didn't always feel like as real of a character as the women in the story did. So I know it can be difficult to write a character that is different from who you are as a person. It was just interesting to see that from the other side when I so often read the other kind of fantasy, like The Wheel of Time, for example. Some of it felt kind of creepy. So blood magic, and not every witch is good. And as I said before, to get a really powerful dark magic spell, you have to take blood unwillingly from someone else. One of the main bad characters is really, really bad. She's abusive, and we find out more about her as we go into the story. And then they're finding these dead and mutilated bodies, which the witch hunters think is probably the Crimson Moth. Rune knows it's not her, but she knows there must be other witches out there trying to collect blood for some kind of powerful witchcraft. She's not sure what. So that part was a little on the creepy side for me. And then I have heard that not everyone wants to know that a book has a twist, because having a twist is like a spoiler. I feel like every book I have ever read like this has one, so I feel like that's part of the genre. But I will say that the twist was very well done. I knew that some kind of twist was coming. Like, I could feel something being set up, but I could not tell what it was. And then when it did happen, it had been set up so well that I was like, oh, I should have seen that. So I think that's what makes a twist good. Like, you know something's happening. You're not blindsided. It's set up well enough that it makes sense, and that if you were going to go back and reread it, then you would see the little clues, meaning the author did a good job setting it up so that the payoff of the twist feels good and feels earned. So I still haven't decided if I care to read the second one or not. I have so many other books to read right now, I just don't know. I don't know. It's a big maybe for now. If you have read this and read the second one, let me know if you thought it was worth it to read the second one. That might help me decide. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys a lot. I will link my Patreon, my Instagram, the author, and if I can find them, this cover artist, because I love the cover and it's beautiful. And happy reading. Bye.